Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and it's Banlist season, baby. Now, because Banlist season is pretty much free content season for Yugi tubers, I could rattle off a prediction list that would look pretty much identical to every other prediction list you've seen already. I want Scythe gone, I want Io gone, I want Masterpiece to 3, but I want to do something just a little bit different. So for the past few ban lists, I've used Banlist season to run something called the Moron Banlist Tournament. Now, this is a tournament in which I take an egregious number of cards off the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list to prove to you that there's a lot of chaff weighing down the FNL. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list has stuff that was banned in like 2007 on it because people were sick of losing to it at their local EB games. And after a couple of installments, we've used the MBT to test if certain cards could come off at all. And I think we've kind of exhausted that line of thinking. See, the MBT was made to test what could come off the ban list with no impact to the larger metagame or the play rates of any specific card. Ideally, the top decks would remain card for card the same pre and post list. This time, I want to see how far we can go without literally ruining Yu-Gi-Oh! We're going to be taking off cards that will have an immediate and negative impact on the game. They will make many rogue decks playable, a significant number of which are not fun. But we are going to try and keep the top tier of deck, currently Tri-Brigade, Leerlisk, Tenyi, Sword Soul, and Invoked, all where they currently are. Let's take off half the list. So, here we are, 95 cards off the ban list. Now, two stipulations first. One, I didn't ban any cards. In the past, we've done things like flip Halqifibrax for a bunch of tuner monsters that died in its wake, or flip Hunter and Zenmaity. I have not done that this time because I don't want to add anything. Certainly, we could get very advantageous trades in terms of numbers if we did that, but I think it'd be very funny to see what we can do without touching any forbidden numbers. And second, there are some cards on the ban list that aren't on the ban list because they're powerful. They're on the ban list because they cause ruling headaches. Like Victory Dragon, for example, currently on screen, can win the match if it attacks directly. However, you can concede at any time, making it functionally useless. All it's going to do is get a judge over to your table. Now, mostly Konami has said they don't want these types of cards in the game, and that's absolutely fine. But if we're taking 95 cards off the ban list, we don't really have that luxury. So, let's go through the individual cards. We've got Victory Dragon, useless if you can concede at instant speed. Phoenix Cluster Amaryllis is part of an FTK that is unfortunately more fragile than current FTKs available. Blaster Dragon, Ruler of Infernos, is the first card that we probably should not be bringing off. The Dragon Rulers are impressively powerful, and this one is both a removal spell and an extension tool for decks that exist and want both of those. But the real problem with Dragon Rulers is if you have a critical mass of them, you can trigger their effects every turn, and with only 2 Dragon Rulers legal, this probably isn't the case. Blaster is also the second worst Dragon Ruler after Tempest, arguably, and we're not unbanning any of the others. Because there's no Electromite, it's absolutely fine to bring a lot of Pendulum tools back to the table. Certainly Kieran, Monkey Board, and Plushfire are all exceptionally powerful, but they pale in comparison to the tools Pendulum has gotten since. Kieran specifically is a really strong card, but Monkey Board only searches Perform Pals, and Odd Eyes monsters, and Plushfire only searches Perform Mages, those of which are bad. Gin Releaser of Rituals prevents your opponent from special summoning if it's used as material for a ritual summon. This can't be used in the most popular ritual deck currently played, Drytron, because Meteonis Drytron only allows you to use machine monsters as part of the summoning requirement. I think the best thing this could be played in is Necroz, and while that's certainly unfun and probably shouldn't be legal, I don't think it's going to be breaking anything. Lunalight Tiger is on here because Ceramidon said he would give me 5 subs if I put Lunalight Tiger on here. After that are Blackwing Steam the Cloak Jet, Synchron, and Glow Up Bulb, 3 cards that died for Crystron Halqifibrax's Sins. That card is a very powerful link monster that can be made with a link and a non-link monster. All of these cards were put on the ban list for either extension purposes into that card or extension past that card into more powerful bosses. Since then, they have released a lot more cards that make Halqifibrax a lot easier, and I think these aren't going to break anything if we put them to 1 copy apiece. I could be absolutely wrong. That Grass Looks Greener is a very interesting card. It warps deck building, it warps in-game decision making. You play Left Arm Offering to find it if you've only got 1 copy in deck. That said, we were really hard-pressed for the 95th card. This is it, and I think that while this card is impressively powerful, it will come up a lot less than we're expecting. Heavy Storm is not legal, but Harpy's Feather Duster is. The fear is that you can plus yourself with something like the Eldritch Traps, something that the cards already do natively, or remove Floodgates from your side of the field. But if you can name a deck that would be playing Floodgates and also wants to remove them from their side of the field by using Heavy Storm to minus themselves, good luck. Metamorphosis is certainly a very powerful card, and I don't like taking it off. You can trade one of your monsters for something as powerful as a Naturia Exterio, for instance, but diluting your deck with cards that are that star line in order to make a monster that powerful for only one copy of Metamorphosis is probably not particularly realistic. Could be very wrong about this one. Speaking of cards that could be very wrong about, Spellbook of Judgment. This card has been clamored for by Reddit for a long time, and as we know, Reddit is never wrong. They say that, oh, it only searches Spellbook cards, so it's no big deal. Well, it also summons a Spellcaster-type monster, and there were a couple of really good ones of those released recently. That said, I think this just makes Invoke Dogmatic decks a lot worse, so we shall see. In the most previous Moron Banlist tournament, it was completely fine. Mass Driver is a remnant of Frog FTK. If you can get 20 monsters on your side of the field with this unsearchable continuous spell at 1, congratulations, you deserve the win. Smoke Grenade of the Thief was very powerful in Infernoble Knight, a deck that has absolutely disappeared after Link Cross was banned. Last Turn is a very strange card. This card is pretty much unactivatable and resolvable under current Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules, and as a result, is probably fine because no one would play it because they don't know how it works. Currently, we've only got a 14-page fan-made ruling document compiled from word of mouth using judges from 2008 who worked for a company that is no longer affiliated with Yu-Gi-Oh! But in the modern era, this loses to pretty much anything, including hand traps, and is unsearchable because there's only one copy, so you can't trap trick into it. Self-destruct button was only hit for rulings reasons and can therefore come off. Trap Dust Shoot is maybe very good. It's really only good going first because the opponent will probably dump their entire hand in order to get their mainline combo going. And even then, it's only good if you don't need your 5th card as part of your setup combo and you expect your opponent to only have one monster that you want to get out of their hand in their standby phase. It's a very strange card to evaluate. And finally, Wind-Up Carrier Zenmaity. In the past, we've traded this for Hunter. That's the clamoring of Reddit again. But realistically, Zenmaity is the more powerful card. It allows you to extend into powerful Link monsters, even if you are not hand-looping your opponent. Having performed the hand loop a lot for History of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I think that probably one copy is not going to break anything, but I could be wrong. And now, the Unlimits. First, the Exodia pieces. These are only on the list because thematically Konami wants you to only be able to play one copy of the Forbidden One. Like, there's only one Exodia in the universe. Realistically, you don't want to play more than one copy. They brick you to high heaven in a deck that's trying to draw their entire deck. Replacing a left leg with a draw spell is a net good. That said, I imagine someone will bring Treasure Panda and do something hilarious with it. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon received an errata, which means you would probably never play more than one copy. True King Lithosagem the Disaster was very powerful when VFD was legal, and when a bunch of Dino tools were legal that are now no longer legal, and when banishing individual cards from your opponent's extra deck was very good, which it is no longer. After that is Masterpiece of True Draco Slaying King. Liberals hate to hear this, but Masterpiece is not a particularly good card. Even True Draco pilots would probably only play it at 2. It's very bricky, and individuals playing it in decks where it doesn't belong, like Weather Painters, will find that they are playing an impressively powerful card that can't be summoned a lot of the time and bricks you to high heaven. Astrograph Sorcerer is completely fine without its interaction with Electromite. Tempest Dragon Ruler of Storms. Okay, so I know that I said that we brought Blaster off because there's no critical mass of Dragon Rulers, and now we're unbanning 2 Dragon Rulers, but Dragon Ruler of Storms' this effect is so bad that it's probably not going to make a difference. Danger Nessie is at 2, putting it to 3 will do nothing. Dynamite Knight, the True Draco Fighter, is the best True Draco card on the ban list and will probably make the deck rogue competitive. That said, I don't think it's going to stand up to current meta strategies. Destiny Hero Malicious will be used alongside Vion as an extender in Dark Warrior, a deck that I expect to exist post-ban list. That said, I don't think that deck is more powerful than existing strategies. Certainly not like a deck like Phantom Knight that can just extend to infinity anyway. Infernity Archfiend can come off because every Infernity can come off as long as they don't have 3 Lawn Chair. We've got this guy. Again, 95 cards. Don't think it's going to be top tier after a Miscellaneous Source Unlimit. It's going to be very frustrating to play against, I understand, but 95 cards. Perform House Skullcrobat Joker is currently a 2, could come off to 3 to no problem. Dark Refer and Armageddon Knight are cards that are kind of feared by the majority of the player base because of what they enabled in the past and their applications in Dark Warrior. Armageddon Knight's not very good because it takes your normal summon. You can summon it off of Isold, but, you know, good luck. And Dark Refer usually takes your normal summon, but occasionally doesn't. Even if he does, you're spending like 4 cards in your hand to send 1 card to the graveyard, which is fine, but not fantastic. Phantom Skyblaster is a card that people fight me on all the time, but this could come to 3, no problem. You have to devote a significant amount of space in your extra deck to the garnets necessary to make the tokens into something actually playable, and using your normal summon on this card isn't fantastic, especially if you have to commit to a combo beforehand to get anything other than one singular token. Salamangreat Gazelle. Salamangreat is not fantastic right now. I think Gazelle could come to 3. I don't think that's what's holding it back. Gen X Ally Birdman. This card was feared for a significant amount of FTKs in its interactions with Reborn Tengu and the like. None of that stuff is really relevant now. Chusinoko is currently at 2, could come to 3, no problem. Servant of Endymion. Oh god, I'm just really going ham on the penned hits here. No Electromite, this card is probably fine. Cyberjar is frustrating. It's a very frustrating card. It's not a good card, but it's very frustrating. It's a board wipe, and then it summons 5 monsters to both player sides of the field. Realistically, it's too inconsistent and too slow to actually accomplish anything for anything other than Empty Jar, which might be enabled by this list, but I don't think is very good because it loses to a single copy of Droll and Lockbird. Danger Jackalope is currently a 2, and it will probably go to 3 with no problem. Fiber Jar is the same as Cyber Jar, just worse. Night Assailant is part of a really funny loop in which it discards itself to add a Night Assailant to hand. You can do this infinitely, but there's not a lot of very good infinite discard outlets in the game right now. Morphing Jar, same issue as Cyber Jar. It enables Empty Jar, but doesn't do a lot else. Cyberstein, this card is not very good. Negating this card absolutely wins you the game on the spot. It costs 5,000 life points, so if your opponent does anything on their first couple of turns, you are probably never going to get it off. It's already at 1 and very searchable, and no one's playing it, so that should tell you something. Yatagarasu is it's not good. A lot of people give me pushback on this. They go, what if you lock out of the top of the deck? Well, what if you lock off the top of the deck? Yatagarasu is a 200 attack point spirit monster, which means it's very hard to get a direct attack in. You already have to be winning combat. You already have to be in a winning position, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now is more about managing your hard once per turns than what's on top of your deck. Quick Fix is fine because Master Plan is banned. Ava, I don't think Drytron is really that good. It's mostly disappeared from competitive play after losing a single copy of this card, so I think we can probably bring it back to 2 or 3 with no problem. Instant Fusion, this card has a hard once per turn on it, and therefore is probably fine at 3. A Hero Lives, this card's very powerful and will be used to enable really silly setups from warrior type decks. That said, I don't think that those setups are more scary than the things that other decks can do right now. Raigeki is not a good card. People are not playing it now. We have modular versions that people much prefer. It individually is not going to break anything. The ability to pop a board is absolutely useless against a lot of decks, and as a result, it's probably fine. Sekka's Light, I don't know why this is at 1. A monster combo deck with 3 Sekka's Light is absolutely fine. One Day of Peace. The issue with cards like this and Into the Void is that once you get a critical mass of them, a lot of strategies become available where you can just stall out and draw your entire deck. I'm a little concerned about this one, but it's less powerful than a lot of the others that would be still on the list, like Upstart Goblin. Mind Control is a very powerful card and will be in every sideboard for sure, but I think it's actually a pretty interesting piece of going second interaction. Reasoning, completely fine at 3. I mean, this card is only extending, Cursed Eyes into more Super Quants. Slash Draw enables an FTK that allows you to set the top of your deck with something like Saruya and then use Slash Draw in order to find a second Slash Draw. That's fine. If you can get through your entire deck and set that combo up, you probably deserve to win. Card Destruction, also fine at 3. This card minuses you for 1, and cards these days love to be in the graveyard, so you might be plussing your opponent like 4 when you fire this bad boy off. Sarcophagus would have applications in Thunder Dragon, which is not a particularly good deck, and Flunder, but only in order to chain block, which the deck already does a lot. Into the Void is, again, very powerful and would probably see play in a lot of decks, but I think that we have left enough draw spells on the list that it's not going to be that big of a deal. Final Countdown. This is currently a 1. I don't really understand why. It'd be completely fine at 3. The decks that play it pretty much stall for infinite number of turns, so it doesn't really matter where it is. Draco Faceoff, another piece of Pendulum support that has been absolutely power crept. Speaking of cards that have been absolutely power crept, Emergency Teleport. Scapegoat is very powerful in control decks as a way to activate during the end phase, get 4 materials, and then make a very powerful Link monster, something that pretty much every deck is expected to do now anyway. It also requires a very heavy splash in the extra deck of cards necessary to make the Scapegoats into something interesting, which I think is a fair trade-off. Chain Strike could go to 3, no problem. Burn is not that scary. Multi-roll is not supposed to be on here. Gateway to the 6. 6am currently has a Gateway Searcher, and it's changed absolutely nothing. They still make an FTK that's very interruptible and takes longer than a human lifespan to actually execute. Zodiac Barrage. This card's very good and will see play. However, I don't think Zodiacs are really that scary without Trident and Broad Bowl. Dimension Fissure. I just love Floodgates, baby. We were hurting for extra cards. Butterfly Dagger Elma is on here because of its interactions with Gearfried the Iron Knight. I don't think that's a realistic consideration in this day and age. Divine Wind of Mist Valley was part of a really silly FTK that no longer has any legs. Trickstar Light Stage is on here because it can make a Link 2 very easily. Wow, just like pretty much every other archetype right now. Resort is on here because of Master Plan, could easily come to 3. Chicken Game. This is another draw spell that I'm a little scared of letting off the list, but I think is generally fine. Chicken Game also leads to weird game states that I find pretty interesting, where like it stays on the field and both players kind of have to decide what they want to do. I think that's the intended use of this card, unfortunately, not an FTK enabler, and I hope to see more of that and less of just drawing out your deck. Magical Midbreaker Field is a card that insulates you against some certain hand traps. Many people have said, oh my god, FTKs will be so strong without this. Not really. Significant amount of hand traps still get around it. It's only insulation against like 1 or 2 specifically, and playing a card that only outs a few hand traps is something that Flunder does, a deck that's bad. Magical Explosion could go to 3. There's a bunch of cards that perform its exact role in decks that are doing that. Time Seal is a bad card. You can't activate it on your opponent's first draw. You have to activate it when you have the ability to activate a spell or trap card, which means that they are always going to be able to draw their first card. The only thing you can stop is the 4th turn draw, which is abysmal. Wall of Revealing Light is another floodgate that prevents attacks. This can be destroyed by Nightmare Phoenix now, so not a big consideration. Macrocosmos, another floodgate like Dimensional Fissure, which undoubtedly would cause waves, but I think is hilarious. And finally, Skill Drain, another very powerful floodgate that the OCG has at 3, a sentiment that does not make me feel any more comforted. Gemini Master Diamond is on the list because of interactions in an FTK that included a card called Block Dragon, which is now on the list. I think that FTK is now a lot more fragile, and as a result, this can probably come off. Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier was limited because people thought you could rip 3 cards out of your opponent's hand on the first turn. That is true, but 3 cards is enough to win the game, and as a result, I think that's absolutely fine. If you want to dump your entire hand into making 3 of these bad boys and then lose to a single into your servant, the onus is on you. Psyframe Lord Omega, exact same deal. Tempest Magician was part of an FTK that is not worth considering. TG Hyper Librarian is currently at 1. Certainly, this would enable a really powerful deep draw synchro deck, but I think that deck is not even remotely competitive in terms of today's modern metagame. Danglong, first of the Yang Zing, would probably see play. This card's really strong. It's got a very advantageous typing, and it does a lot of very interesting things for decks that are playing worms, and I can think of one of those in the top decks that is already very strong. However, it would require a significant amount of change to that deck list, and I don't think that change would necessarily be for the better. I'm interested in seeing what people come up with. Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal, is currently at 1. I think the fear is that it's kind of like Laval Chain, where like you could overlay 2 6s. Malicious certainly makes that easier, and then send any card from your deck to the graveyard, but you can already do that with 1. I think 3 is probably fine. Emerald is on here because of its interactions with Zodiac and its interactions with some FTKs. I think that we can probably bring that off. Tolmaeus, I literally could not tell you why this is on the list. I think that it was here because you could make Cyber Dragon Infinity turn 1 in a deck that would barf out 3 4-star monsters. That's fine. Salamangreat Great Mirage Stalio, again, I don't think resolves any outstanding problem with the deck. Salamangreat Great doesn't have any problems finding Gazelle. They have problems with their exceptionally low ceiling and beating decks that resist their 2 power traps. And finally, Prank Kids Meow Meow. Why was this put on here? The deck wasn't even fantastic. And finally, to throw a bonus Sky Striker players, I will put the card that I intended to include in the unlimited list here, Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor. This is a very powerful card, and the deck certainly will be better for it, but I don't think that deck is necessarily as good as the other decks that are enabled. We might be flying just a little bit too close to the sun. 95 is a huge number of cards to unban, and as I was rolling through the list, my mind was firing, telling me, no, don't do this. Think of this very specific way this individual card could be broken. But at the end of the day, I am reasonably confident that even with this list, the top 3 decks will remain the same. Tri-Brigade Lyrilisc, Sword Soul Tenyi, and Invoked. But if you disagree, prove me wrong. There's a link in the description to a Discord where you can sign up for the Moron Banlist tournament. I'll be selecting 16 to 32 deck lists aimed at specifically breaking this format. If you can prove that my choices were incorrect, I invite you to do so. In the past, I've been proven right 2 times and owned once, and realistically I was only owned because the True Draco player drew out of their mind. But I think, despite all of the nonsense that this enables, the upper echelon of Yu-Gi-Oh! Will remain the same.